Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the November 6, 2025 meeting of Glendale's Charter Review Committee.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks for coming tonight. First item of business, roll call.
Committee members Durham,
Here.
Flower,
Here.
Garibian, Haratunian,
Here.
Karpetian,
Here.
Manasarian, Meek,
Here.
Megardician, Miller,
Here.
Povolitis,
Here.
Smith,
Here.
you.
Okay, that's a quorum. Next item, report of the recording secretary regarding the posting of the agenda.
Report of recording secretary reposting of agenda. The agenda for the November 6, 2025 Charter Review Committee was posted on November 3rd, 2025 before 5:30 p.m. on the bulletin board outside of City Hall.
Thank you. Next item, oral communications. Discussion at this time is limited to items not part of this agenda. Each speaker is allowed 3 minutes. The committee may question or respond to the speaker, but there will be no debate or decision. The Charter Review Committee may refer the matter to staff for further investigation and report. Do we have any speakers?
Chair, we have 2 speakers in the audience and at least 1 speaker on the phone. I think 1 more coming in.
Okay, well, let's start in the room.
Okay, Herbert Milano or Avi, do you want to go first?
I'd like to give the 3 minutes to Herbert Milano.
You have 6 minutes, Mr. Milano.
Thank you very much. Chair Flowers, members of the Charter Review Committee, it was about 23 years ago that I remember being at the last Charter Review Committee. I remember Lucy Varpetian, I believe, was the attorney back then as well, assisting. So this event doesn't happen that often, but it is as important as the meeting that this nation had back in 1789 when they were approving the Constitution. It is that important because the city council members can always change an ordinance to whatever they feel. But if it's in the charter, it creates a level of accountability and a wall that they cannot easily surpass. That is why the things that you hear are so incredibly important. I have before you 2 documents that maybe are in front of your desk. The blue document has to do with the audit committee suggestions that I'm making to this committee, and the white one is a document that I'm recommending to enhance and empower the Civil Service Commission, which we'll be discussing later on. I'm presenting here because these are not items that are in your agenda, but are items that I suggest that you do consider. And it is an idea about enhancing the operational prerogatives, right, that are needed in order for that committee to have requirements that must be met because they could be easily changed. One of the topics that I mentioned in this one is the problem of what I consider nepotism, what others consider simply as family members being hired by the city. I will give you an example. If you take 3 qualified candidates, and those 3 qualified candidates are shooting a basketball, imagine one on the other end of the court shooting the basketball. That's the equivalent of a general outside random individual making an application for a job in the city of Glendale. Imagine another basketball player as disqualified shooting that basketball from the foul line. That's an individual who has a family member in the city working for the city of Glendale. And now imagine the third one standing up on a ladder with a ball hanging over the basketball, the hoop. And that's the relative of a city official. And so we have examples of 2 of those that occurred. The objective of the civil service is to provide a fair, right, standard with regard to the merit. If you got 3 meritorious individuals who basically are applying, they should all have an equal chance of getting hired and no one getting a leg up, which is when you look at the data, you're going to find this in many departments occurring. And it needs the operational controls so that later on it doesn't get watered down. And I made 2 other additional suggestions about this. The audit committee. The audit committee serves for all intents and purposes as a performative, it's a performance They have no real authority. They cannot select what is going to be audited. They cannot initiate anything. The staff gives them a list of things that they want, and then the list goes to the city council for approval. But initiating items, doing random samples, doing additional procedural requirements, they can always say, well, we don't have enough staff, or whatever excuse. We need a powerful audit committee, because these two committees and commissions are the ones that are providing the oversight for the rest of the city. And if they are powerless, then we are completely subjected to whatever the whims or likes of the city council members are. And we are here precisely to make sure that we get good governance. And we cannot have good governance with these two commissions and committees being weak. They need to be fertilized, and this is the place where that can happen. In one of these, I have the list of the top 254 positions in terms of overall compensation. All of those exceed $300,000 in total compensation a year, and you'll see the list going up in the 400,000s and in the $500,000, and then the top one at $652,000. You don't get to see the comparisons of what they used to be. This is exponential increases that are unsustainable, and that is the reason why I put here as well a copy of this year's budget and the potential increases, because even though those numbers are staggering, amazing salary compensation, we're still expecting a 13% increase this year, a 28% increase in overtime, and a 23% increase in benefits. This city cannot function the way it has been going in the past few years. And where is the oversight? Ask yourself, we don't seem to have any controls with regard to where this is leading us. And in my assessment, this is leading us to bankruptcy. It's not the only city that's done so. It happened in the Bay Area, it happened in San Bernardino, there are a few others that you can look at the history of this. Unsustainable increases in payroll, because the way we have the political structure is impacting us. You know, when somebody runs for office because they want the endorsement of the police department and the fire department, and they not hold them accountable, and that happens election after election after election, you should think back, and maybe we should be changing the way we elect and the terms that we give. Maybe we should just limit it to 1 at 6 years. This is the place to do it, but it's not in the agenda, and the chair is likely not going to give you the prerogative to go in that direction.
Mr. Milano, can you wrap it up? Your time's up.
Okay, let me wrap it up. Mr. Flower, with all the experience that you have, you could have given us this enriching environment of all that experience to say, watch out for this, let's put these assurances, let's add. And I wish that some of you
Ms. Milano,
build the courage to be able to move this.
we've given you
forward.
6 minutes. Are you wrapping this as?
Yeah, that's it. I thank you very much, and thank you, everyone, for recognizing the importance of this.
Are there any other speakers in the room?
Chair, there are 2 callers, no
Chair,
speakers in
can
the room.
am I allowed to ask a clarifying question?
Yes.
Mr. Milano? Just one question. Did I hear, I think you stated that the audit committee doesn't have the prerogative to determine what it audits?
Yes, that's my assessment. And I've seen it in performance on the times that I've been there. In fact, if you were to watch the last audit committee meeting, you'll see precisely that.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry, can I respond to that?
You're beating me to it.
Okay, go ahead.
No, feel free.
There is a very lengthy process by which the audit committee participates in developing the audit plan that is approved by the audit committee, then presented to the city council, and it's then approved by the city council. So that's the quick way of describing what happens, so that's not a true response.
And maybe I could just elaborate one tiny bit to add a little bit more context to it. There's actually a step in there where the city manager is also involved, as well as a step prior to that where the audit manager within the city on an annual basis solicits feedback from different departments on the different types of things to audit based on a risk assessment. is not necessarily a question of, tell us what you want us to audit. It's actually a series of questions that get answered. And then we compare those responses to the various different risks we may have in the organization. They may be contractual risks, they might be liability type issues, whatever those are. And then what we do is we'll develop a lengthy list. We'll take that list to the city manager. The city manager will review it. It goes to the audit committee. The audit committee reviews audits that are going to be approved, and ultimately that final list that the audit committee approves goes to the city council. Once the city council approves it, that becomes the annual work plan for the audit committee. And I'll also clarify that if something were to come up mid-year, there is an opportunity to add or delete things on that audit plan. And I'll also say that the audit committee does, in fact, technically have the ability to add things to the audit list.
And they have. They have in the past.
Thank you for the clarification. First speaker.
Yeah, Chair, we have two
On.
callers.
Okay.
Beth Brooks, you're live with the Charter Review Committee. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm sorry I'm not there. I'm not feeling very well. I don't know how many of you actually watched the city council meeting on Tuesday to see that basically 3 members of the council ignored what your recommendations were from your months of hard work and dedication, and it was very sad to see, because I'm trying to figure out then what exactly are you doing. If we knew what the 3 members of the city council wanted, because at one of the meetings, at least, they, the chair wanted you to actually revisit why you made your own decision, and you rightfully rejected that. But it is very disturbing. It was very sad to watch. It felt very very authoritarian. If anybody was worrying about kings, that's what I saw. So that was very sad to see. And secondarily, what was also interesting to me, because I'm trying to figure out who exactly is the gatekeeper then of the charter, because when I had mentioned before, and I said that in front of the Charter Review Committee, about the city council deciding to basically reject or bypass the ordinance that says they're supposed to meet every week and meet three times in a row and skip one time, it turns out that they also violate the charter because they're supposed to meet the next business day after a holiday, which would be next Wednesday. So they've been doing this for years. So if Mr. Garcia is the attorney in both the meeting you're in now and the city council, who exactly is telling the city council, you know what, you can't do that. That violates the charter. I just don't know who the gatekeeper is anymore to make sure that rules are being followed, because rules are not being followed. And that's also a reason why there are calls to have an elected city attorney, because if you're seeing things like that, then what am I supposed to know, that to go in and say, you know what, you're violating the charter? How can the city attorney sit there and not tell the council that? So I'm really disturbed about this, and I want to know what are the safeguards in place. I mean, does the public need to get involved and say, now we have to check you on everything because you're not doing X, Y, and Z? How does the city council violate the charter? For years on this. Bad enough that they just decided a resolution will overturn an ordinance because there's no legal remedy, according to Mr. Garcia. So they can do it because it can't be brought to court. So is that something also that the Charter Review Committee can look into, that a resolution can now nullify or transform an ordinance? Is that possible? Can you look into that? Because this is very disturbing. But I personally want to thank you, because I saw all these
Beth, your
meetings.
time's
We
up.
worked
Thank you.
so hard. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Brooks. Next caller.
Anonymous,
Before we
you're
go to
on
that,
the
I just
air.
want to ask, the city attorney, I know you were going to give us an update on
1 second,
the
sorry.
council meeting later in our agenda.
Okay,
Okay,
I'll do
we'll
that during staff comments.
talk about it then. Okay, thank you. I'm sorry. Caller, please.
Sorry about that. Anonymous, you're on the air with the Charter Review Committee. You have 3 minutes.
Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to propose a vital reform in how we determine compensation for all city personnel, including city council. this committee has the opportunity to codify a transparent database system for setting salaries, one that is financially sound and subject to the audit committee oversight. Our past decisions reveal deep flaws in the current process. The last adjustment to public employee pay disregarded taxpayer interest, strained public trust, and ignored the city's serious financial constraints, especially as we continue to face heavy pension obligations and the costly mistakes tied to the Grayson Repower project, a project with a 30-year loan that will amount to nearly $1 billion after interest, the payments of which will outlast the equipment, such as the battery storage system, which is only expected to last half the time. The costly miscalculation will be a lasting reminder in our rising utility bills for years to come. To prevent further mismanagement related to compensation, I recommend linking all future salary changes to a moving 3-year average of the Consumer Price Index for all urban consumers, also known as a CPIU. The annual update would smooth out 1-year economic fluctuations, ensuring fairness and predictability. A CPIU-based system protects workers from inflation while keeping the city's financials stable. Embedding this policy into our city charter would permanently safeguard taxpayers, enforce accountability, and prevent officials from using pay increases to curry favor with staff or secure political loyalty through arbitrary decisions. Please agendize this proposal for a future meeting to create a fair, responsible framework that strengthens public confidence and secures the city's fiscal future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, caller. Is that it?
Chair, yes, those are all the speakers.
All right, thank you. Next item is approval of the minutes from our October 2nd meeting. Is there any changes, corrections to those minutes? Would anybody like to make a motion?
I'll move to approve the minutes.
Second.
You want to speak on the minutes?
Yes,
Okay,
The card here?
thank you.
Thank you, Chair Flower. If you look at the minutes that you have before you, you'll notice that there is no recognition of any speaker. Somebody spoke. How is that possibly a proper way of recording what transpired? Not even my name is on it. The excuse that generally is given to you is that people can always go back to the video as a way of trying to find out who spoke. But the things that I spoke about, I think, are incredibly relevant and important for consideration by this committee. But it happens across all of the committees and commissions in the city. No recognition is given of the person. Sometimes they put the name. But the topic is what we come to talk about, right? The issues that need to be referenced. Because if a person comes to a meeting week after week or month after month, saying, here is an issue that pertains to us that needs addressing, you wouldn't know by looking at the minutes. And because this is a charter review committee, and the city council and the staff do not like for us to be recording that information written, then it's up to this charter review committee to make those changes, to force the city to include it. And it can be done easily. I could easily have a card where I fill it in and say, this is what I'll be talking about and what I want on the record. We could move towards a process of automating these meetings if we're able to transcribe it, and then the systems allow it to automatically create the agenda properly, recording everyone. But if we don't do it at the charter level, it's not going to be done at the city council level, because they don't want to recognize those individuals who are bringing the problems forward. And that is the essence of what we do in a democracy. Somebody comes in to speak, to tell us of a problem that needs resolving, it should be recorded. They refuse. Even today, in your own documents right there, I have no value to these individuals. My thoughts have no value. My contribution has no value because it's not recorded. And this is the first place where people go to see that the topics are essential to be recorded, and it's up to this charter committee to make sure that it gets in the charter. And if the city council denies it, then you know that their interest is not the interest of the public. They have some other agenda. Thank you, by the way.
Thank you.
Chair, could I ask a question? What are the official minutes? Is it what gets approved here, and so the written document is the official minutes of any proceeding?
These, yeah, if I
Well,
may, if
all
I
the
may,
city
yeah,
attorney
so yes, these are the minutes. Obviously, there's a recording of the meeting that's maintained for a significant period of time. I don't know that we've ever deleted recordings. So going back tens of years, we maintain those as well. But these are the official, and just to the point, that if Mr. Milano spoke at the meeting on the minutes, that should be reflected here, but we do not record what it was said in the minutes. These are action minutes, so it's just that he spoke on this particular topic, and that is a citywide policy and instituted by the council to maintain action minutes in that form.
And is there a policy on, because you mentioned the recording that's retained, is there a policy on how those recordings are treated and what weight they have?
No, other than they exist.
They're subject to retention schedule and
Correct.
Public Records Act.
And any destruction of those would actually require council approval. We have not, to my recollection, destroyed any recordings since we began recording these meetings.
Because, okay, maybe this is something, a future agenda item, because what Mr. Milano said jogged something in my mind in relative to, 2025 and the accessibility of video recordings and the ease with which things can be transcribed and whatnot. So limiting the documentation for posterity to just a piece of paper and a person's name, we could probably get more than that without putting a lot of effort into it these days. Just a thought.
We still have the issue of approval of the minutes from the October 2nd meeting. Was there a motion?
I move to approve the minutes.
All right, thank you, Alan. Second by Carl. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions?
I wasn't.
Okay,
I'll also abstain.
it's 2 abstentions. Okay. Did you get the abstentions in the record?
Mr. Meek and Mr. Smith.
Mr. Meek and Mr. All right, thank you. Sorry, I was lost in the minutes. All right, staff comments.
I think I just wanted to, for the benefit of the committee, if you had the opportunity to watch the council discussion on the charter committee's work to date. First, just want to, extend, the council all made comments that they're very appreciative of the amount of time and effort that the committee has put into work to date on the various subject matters that you've discussed. At the end of the day, the council didn't make any decisions on Tuesday related to council districts or compensation. We'll be having a follow-up discussion at the beginning of the year. But suffice it to say, that means that any charter amendments that are put forward will not be put forward on the June ballot, but will be put forward on the November ballot. So with respect to council districts and the directly elected mayor, the majority of the council still wants to explore going to districts. Didn't say they were opposed to it or favor, but express feelings that they want to continue to have that discussion and think about it before making a decision. With respect to compensation, two council members wanted to accept the committee's recommendation. 2 council members favored using AMI as the benchmark for setting council salaries, and then the 5th council member desired to have an increase in compensation, but also stated a willingness to accept the committee's recommendation. So again, no decision was made on that. The future discussion will be had at the beginning of the year. The council was also in favor of the 3 items that the committee recommended related to location of meetings, obsolete job positions, and compensated city officers, or compensated city employment after council service. So we anticipate a further discussion in January on these topics, and we'll provide a further update. Happy to answer any questions on that briefly.
Am I correct, Mr. Garcia, that the council, I think maybe unanimously advised that they did not want this committee to look at an elected city attorney position?
I'm going to turn that over to Mr. Tatalian to answer.
Sure, I can answer that. They did. There was that direction from the city council. There was also direction from the city council for this committee to take up the conversation of an appointed city treasurer, but also an appointed city clerk as well.
My recollection is it wasn't unanimous. Was it unanimous?
I don't know if that was unanimous for the city attorney. I know it was definitely a majority that did not want to move forward with the city attorney, and there was a majority who wanted to move forward with conversation on appointed treasurer and clerk.
So, Elizabeth? Did you have a question?
No, I just wanted to comment. I watched the video, and in appreciation to what we do, actually, they all appreciated our work. I know it's a lot of, they all accepted the fact that it's a lot of hours, whether they will go with our decisions or not, which is legal and proper. We don't have to, but I think it really helps them at least to review what directions at least majority of us are going. So I wanted to take the opportunity to appreciate that they appreciate what we do too. No, honestly, but I think everybody's thinking about what we're saying here and trying to at least help them to go to one or another direction. So it was nice to hear that and see that.
Thank you. Chair, just one thing I wanted to point out. I did watch from home. The issue of the CVRA was mentioned by Councilmember Kasakian during his discussion Q&A. For the record, I think it's important. It's obviously a very salient fact. The consideration of the CVRA was explicitly outside of our discussion. That was the direction to not consider the impacts of the CVRA on our decision. So, to the extent that I don't think that was conveyed to council, because clearly he wasn't aware of that. So, unless he watched, but
My understanding is he watched, specifically, that's why we continued it from the October meeting, was because he specifically asked for the additional time to watch the meetings, and I think he did state that he watched most of the deliberation. But we'll make sure that when we have the next discussion with council, we pass that along.
yeah, I think future staff reports and certainly the report from this committee should include that fact, so that no one, nothing's misconstrued that our decision took into account the CVRA.
Fair point.
I have a. So, in the event that council, I don't know if there's a proper word, rejects our recommendation and wants to look at districting, I'm going to next steps. Does it come back to us as a charter review? Is the first question. And if it does come back to us, can staff please work with council to get very clear on what they're wanting us to look at along those lines? And then lastly, given that I was at the meeting, by the way, in terms of disclosure, was a vote taken on, I did know there was consensus by the majority of many of the council, I think it was at least 4, to remove the the elected city attorney. But my question around that is, would you, on a future meeting with them, get an exact count of that so that we could clearly know if that's out of our scope to continue? Thank you.
I'll answer the last one. In the future, I think we can. Honestly, it was a long night. I don't remember if they took an official vote on
They did not.
They didn't, but it was a clear majority, and at that point, they didn't feel like they needed a vote because the direction was pretty clear. Is it definitive? Not as definitive as it gets.
So let me just ask, I'm not, again, if that is council's decision, I want you to know I respect that, I'm following that. But for the purposes of our discussion and our work here, is it out of scope for you? I don't know how you go back operationally, I'm truly asking. can you, in either your briefing meeting, or can you get a more definitive statement for us on that for the next charter meeting?
Sure. Have to figure out exactly how we would do that. Yeah, I mean, we wouldn't be able to do that behind the scenes. I mean,
Well, let
those
me ask
conversations
this.
would have to happen in an open session. But I will just add this: not everything has to be a motion. If there is clear indication from a majority that they don't want to have the conversation, or that they don't want that particular item to be within the purview of this group, that direction was pretty clear. So even if there was discussion, at this point, there's no desire for them to even have us place it on an agenda for them to consider.
Okay, I didn't hear it presented that way earlier, so if you are clearly saying there's consensus and they want it removed, I just wanted that recorded.
I apologize if I wasn't clear earlier.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I could just answer your earlier question about what happens if the council decides they want to move forward on districts. We presented them two options, that if they wanted to do that, they could either refer it back to you or they can just make the decision to provide direction to staff on what that would look like, what the role of the mayor would be, for example. We did point out to them that it would have been problematic if they wanted to refer back to you for a June election. Now that it's likely November, there's probably a little bit more time to do that. And I also pointed out to them that it seemed clear, at least the majority of the committee at the time we had the discussion, felt strongly about making recommendations on the role of the mayor or how many districts because of the opposition to that concept. So we just expressed that to them, and so the council will have to decide whether or not to refer back to you or just give us direction to start drafting language for their review.
All right. We ready to move on to the next item? It's something labeled reports information. There's nothing under reports information. So that brings us to item 7A, review of civil service provisions, promotional reallocation process, bumping rules during layoffs, and duration of layoff and reinstatement lists. I'm excited for a staff report.
Turn it over to Ms. Adams.
Okay, good evening, everyone. So this presentation focuses on balancing modernization while ensuring our system evolves in support of public service. Tonight, as stated, I will briefly revisit the topics we covered at the last meeting, but before doing so, we will introduce 3 new areas for consideration and outline the benefits and challenges associated with each one. Promotional reallocation. This suggested refinement honors internal career growth. We want to make sure that reallocation reflects real operational needs and supports employees fairly. Currently, reallocation to a higher classification is treated like a promotion requiring a full competitive exam, even when the change reflects evolving duties in a field job. The current process can be burdensome and may resemble competition for what is clearly internal role evolution. The proposal is to formalize a process allowing internal development when duties change significantly. The benefit is clarity. The risk, if not designed carefully, is perception of unfairness. Our recommendation is to tighten promotional reallocation standards that the Civil Service Commission can review and approve. The result could be a Civil Service Commission rule update. Bumping rules during layoffs. While we remain committed to supporting impacted staff through transition today,
Today, employees may bump citywide into a role previously held, even if the operational environment is very different. While this does protect employee rights, it may create service disruption and training burdens. The concept being explored is to limit bumping to within the same department, aligning skills and continuity of service. This supports operational stability but reduces mobility options for long-serving employees. Any approach would include clear transition planning and communication. We recognize bumping has been a long-standing protection, but this refinement aligns with modern structures and protects employees by ensuring that they land in roles where they can succeed. So, to help visualize how bumping plays out in practice, let's walk through a real-world example. Imagine that the Public Works Department is eliminating one administrative analyst position due to budget reductions. Employee 1 currently holds that position. Because of seniority and total service time, this employee has bumping rights. Under our current charter language, Employee 1 can exercise those rights citywide, meaning they can displace another employee even in a completely different department, such as Glendale Water and Power. While this approach protects tenure, it often places the employee into an unfamiliar operational environment, creating training needs and potential service delivery gaps for the receiving department. So here's how this scenario might unfold step by step. The position in Public Works is abolished. Employee 1 is notified of impending layoff. HR reviews seniority lists citywide and identifies that Employee 1 can bump an administrative analyst in Glendale Water and Power because they have more seniority as an administrative analyst. Glendale Water and Power loses an employee who may be fully trained in complex financial reporting and instead receives someone who must now learn those systems from ground up. The displaced Glendale Water and Power employee, in turn, may bump into yet another department, and in this illustration, the police department, creating a domino effect. This is where operational disruption, retraining costs, and morale issues can ripple across multiple departments. And in this case of the police department, if the Glendale Water and Power employee does not pass the police backgrounds check, that presents more of a conundrum to work through. Under the modernized concept being explored, bumping would be limited to within the same department. Using our example, the administrative analyst in Public Works, that employee could still bump another administrative analyst within Public Works where their knowledge of capital projects, contracts, and workflows remains relevant. This approach still honors tenure and merit protections, but prevents cross-department disruption. It also allows departments to retain staff who already understand their operations, while HR ensures fair process and documentation. In short, it balances compassion with operational continuity, helping employees land in roles where they can succeed while protecting service quality for the public. duration of layoff and reinstatement lists. This next topic focuses on how long layoff and reinstatement lists remain active. Currently, employees can stay on these lists for up to 4 years, 2 years initially, with an optional 2-year extension approved by the Civil Service Commission. While this provides flexibility, it can also result in lists that are outdated and less reflective of current workforce conditions. We're exploring whether establishing a defined duration for these lists would improve fairness and accuracy. Our overall intent is to ensure that when positions become available again, departments are drawing from candidates who remain active, qualified, and ready to return. So the goal is to keep our list relevant and aligned with modern practice. Many comparable public agencies use shorter recall periods between 1 and 2 years to ensure eligibility lists are accurate and current. The benefit is improved responsiveness for both employees and departments. It creates clarity for hiring managers and avoids uncertainty for those waiting years to be recalled. The trade-off, of course, is a shorter window for reemployment, and we understand that can feel limiting if you are a longer-serving employee, which is why any proposals would have to include strong communication and transition support. So tonight we introduced 3 concepts that support a modern civil service framework while honoring the principles that make Glendale's system strong. Each idea carries both benefits and considerations. Our goal is to continue to thoughtfully explore opportunities that improve clarity, service delivery across the organization, of course. And as we continue the dialogue, we want to re-emphasize that our goal is to bring more matters before the Civil Service Commission for its consideration of corresponding rule changes and to update charter language where needed, which would allow us to go down that path. Doing so would strengthen the Commission's authority over employment matters and reinforce transparency and consistency that our merit system was built upon. So we appreciate your feedback on refinement of this presentation, and that includes my remarks for you this evening.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the committee members about the staff report? Alan?
Ms. Adams, could you just confirm exactly what classification means? Is it simply every job position is a classification, and is it as simple as that, or is there more to it?
In its simplest terms, classification means your job title. And so there could be multiple employees within our organization with the same job title, and most often they have the same classification. Every now and again, you'll find that an administrative analyst, as an example, may have a different classification than an administrative analyst in Glendale Water and Power, and that is because when the duties were brought before the commission, it was brought forward with an identifier that speaks to the department as well as the general duties. So it may be classified as administrative analyst, public works, or administrative analyst, Glendale Water and Power, as an example. But in its simplest term, it is your job title.
And one more question. On reinstatement, is that just, that does not have, well, would it have to be reinstatement to the previous classification in the previous department, or that classification in any department? For instance, if the analyst was laid off, when does reinstatement for them, when does that get triggered?
That gets triggered, reinstatement gets triggered when a position is approved to be filled again, and when a position is approved to be filled again, and that same position was a part of the layoff. So I was laid off, and some time passes by, and the city is approving for my position to be filled again. Since I was laid off with that job, then I can be reinstated to the job that I was laid off from.
That position in any department or the same department in which they were laid off from?
It depends. It depends because the job, okay. When I take a written examination and compete for a job, I'm competing for a job, a classification, I'm using those terms interchangeably, that has a Pacific class code, a classification code associated with the naming convention. So when the city goes back to rehire, depending upon which class code they're using, will answer the question that you're asking. Will it be going back to the same department with the same title or not is dependent upon that code that we're recalling back. So it does depend.
Thank you.
Can I follow up on that maybe with a hypothetical or two? So let's take the administrative analyst since we've used that title. So if you go through the bumping and layoff of an administrative analyst, and let's say they originally worked in water and power, and they're on a layoff list, and then an administrative analyst position comes up in community services and parks, we would take somebody off that. They would be eligible to go to community services and parks because the overall title is administrative analyst.
Right.
Throughout, and it's a common, that one happens to be a commonly used title throughout the city in multiple departments.
Correct.
Okay. Then I just kind of want to, because then you said some of them are like administrative analyst, GWP, or whatever department it is. So if you are administrative analyst, GWP, I guess I want to kind of go two things. In the layoff process, then if one of those is being eliminated, you can't go to just an administrative analyst position. You would have to fall into an administrative analyst GWP position or a prior position in that line?
If in the scenario that we're asking that bumping only happens within the department, then yes, you could bump down to something else in Glendale Water and Power. And if Glendale Water and Power moves to rehire again, return to Glendale Water and Power.
Maybe I asked a confusing question, because
Okay.
I'm not even sure I might have it straight in my head. So let's say somebody is a administrative analyst GWP. That position is being laid off. They cannot go into just a general administrative analyst position anywhere else in the city?
They can if they previously
They held
held
it.
that position earlier in career and passed probation, because then they would have property rights to
Okay.
that position in another department.
All right, then I'm going to kind of go circuitously back to where I think Alan was. So let's say an administrative analyst GWP is laid off. and let's say they have not held an administrative analyst general position, so that's the only one they've held, and then one pops up for parks, they would not be eligible for reinstatement because they were specific to GWP?
Right, so
Okay.
in your example, the GWP class code is 1234.
Okay,
The class code in parks is 5678. And I never held the 5678 position or passed probation. So I could not go back to that particular class in your example.
all right. And then the proposal here is that no matter where you are, so let's say I had been an administrative analyst and I worked in the city manager's office and then was an administrative analyst and I moved over to GWP and I'm working in GWP, GWP eliminates the position, I would not be able to move back to the city manager's office. I would only be able to move within GWP at that point.
That's what we're asking
That's the
for.
proposal.
That's the
Let's be
proposal.
clear. The proposal is that if I move from the city manager's office, administrative analyst, and then I move into the position of administrative analyst, GWP, over in GWP, that if there is a layoff in GWP, and I'm going, wait a minute, I've got 40 years on the job and this person has 2, I can't move backwards into another department. It would have to be within GWP. Okay,
That's what we're asking
that's
for.
what you're asking. All right, I got that part clear. All right, I'm good for a minute. I think I have it.
In terms of the class codes, is there a meaningful difference between 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, 6, 7, 8, or is it just a naming convention?
The essential functions of the different class codes are different. So if the class code is 1, 2, 3, 4 around the city, all of us with those in that classification have the same essential functions for our jobs. But for 5, 6, 7, 8, they have a different set of essential functions for their job.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
So if I'm a 1, 2, 3, 4 in parks, and a 1, 2, 3, 4 opens up in the city manager's office, I could go to that.
Yes.
Thank you.
Couldn't you bypass the need for an amendment to the charter by just more specifically coding the positions by department?
Okay, so we've already taken hundreds of classifications over many decades
Okay, so
to
it's an
the Civil
historical
Service
problem.
Commission.
Okay.
So to consolidate all of that
For
in
us.
a rapid fashion is going to be extremely challenging.
Okay.
That was a good question, though. Good idea. Give it to AI. Maybe they'll do it. When a bump happens, so someone bumps down, the person who is going to be terminated is no longer terminated because they bumped down. Now a new person is going to be terminated. How much time do they have? What benefits do they get? Are they basically jumping into the same shoes and as the person who bumped down?
When you say how much time do they have, time for what?
So do they get a notification? I'm just trying to understand how the process works. So they wait, they get an email one day and they say, someone has bumped down, taken your spot. You have 30 days. How does it work?
So there are notice requirements, and so a team would decide what the proper notice is. Let's just say 30 days for an example. If it's a job classification that is represented by a bargaining group, then we would be required to meet and confer with the bargaining group, say this is the plan, this is the notice that we intend to give, and then we would have to listen to the impacts of what we want to do on the employees, and the bargaining groups would have the right to give us that feedback.
Oh, so it's specific to that employee who is having to leave. And in other words, the person who bumped down may have a whole different set of circumstances than the person that they're bumping into and then being bumped out.
Right, and so we would, each transaction as it goes down, it cascades down, would trigger a meet and confer with the bargaining group for who is now being impacted by the bump.
One other question, what is a resource specialist? Is that a job title,
There's something called city resource specialist, if that's what you're referring to.
perhaps?
So it's a generalist classification, mostly used in an hourly capacity, so not examined and having civil service protection. More project-based work. Generally, that's how that position is used.
And so if there's no exam, how is the hiring determination made?
Generally with a oral interview,
And
a panel that would come up with a set of questions for the project at hand.
Okay.
And interview the person generally and make a hiring decision.
And
generally.
is it always a panel, or could it be just a single manager?
If it's a interview scenario, generally it's a panel, but because it's an hourly position, it does not have to be. So it could be a case or a few out there where one person made a decision.
Okay, thank you.
Follow up to Mr. Karapetian's question, which I don't think we got to. If the employee who's staying in the department but bumping down to a lower classification, does that employee retain their existing salary, or is there a downward adjustment?
No, you will, the person would assume the salary of the position to which they're landing.
Go ahead, Carl.
No. On the reinstatement lists, I know I think it's been a while since we've had to lay people off, but as a city, but I'm just curious, it's like, how many people have we reinstated off those lists historically? I mean, if we've gone through, an economic downturn and we've had to eliminate positions and we put people on a reinstatement list, I'm just curious, how many of the people on reinstatement lists have actually ended up coming back to work? And I guess, if you have a sense, how long after?
Yes, I can't answer that question. I'll have
I know
to
I'm looking at a little historical
turn that over to
knowledge,
Amy.
kind of where, does anybody have a sense? Because I think it's been a while, but I'm just curious, once we've done this, what's the probability that somebody comes back, and in what time frame?
It has been a while, and I don't recall specifics, but I vaguely remember reinstating maybe one or two individuals off of the layoff list. I also have to say that when we unfortunately had to go through layoffs a number of years ago, the city took great measures to place employees in any position that we could to limit the actual impact to our employee population. But I don't have the specific
No,
information.
as we're considering how long the layoff list should be, that's, the question is, it's like, does it make sense to have it for 2 years? Because if someone's on the layoff list for 2 years, what's the probability that they're available? If they're working, I'm assuming maybe they've gone to find another job. And, what makes sense to do that? Because on the other part, I'm also a little bit sympathetic to the employee, because if it's a layoff, it's really nothing they did. They weren't terminated for cause. I mean, they got terminated because there's an economic downturn, and seniority is generally the way these things work. So the least you and your people are turned out to the job market. And so it's like, I want to make sure whatever we come up with, we're being fair on that side. That it's like, should things change and an opportunity arises, that there's an opportunity for them to do that. I just don't know that we'd be reappointing people 2 or 3 years down the road.
I'll just add that in a lot of circumstances, it's not about the people, it's about the operations. And oftentimes, when you're trying to determine who you're going to be laying off or who ultimately ends up getting laid off, it's by way of a restructuring of sorts. So chances are, even if they were on a reinstatement list, those business operations have probably since gone away. So whether it's 6 months, a year, 2 years, it's not likely that it would result in a significant impact or improvement.
quick question about the reinstatement list. Trying to find where in the charter it actually specifies the 2-year period. I see in section, sorry, and this is Article 24. Section 2 mentions the, what the rules must provide the Civil Service Commission. And paragraph 9 talks about somebody who's essentially laid off or separated without fault or delinquency. And I see it as a 1 year.
Mr. City Attorney,
Very possibly, I'm reading the wrong provision. That's why I'm looking to orient myself here.
we do know that the duration of reinstatement lists are in the civil service rules. Rule 11, Section 5. However, I can't point to where it is in the charter.
I will look for a while. Maybe there are other questions that can be asked. And I would say, just generally, some of this has been interpretation, as with the bumping rule, an interpretation, a longstanding interpretation of the charter provision, where sometimes it might be vague, so it's been interpreted such a way. So the idea is let's clean it up, or there's an opportunity to clean it up that will make it clear, and then you have more flexibility. But I will look for it while you're.
Chair, if I can ask a question?
Sure.
In terms of the oral exams, or the oral component of the hiring, are those recorded? Is there a rubric? How are they, well, first, are they recorded for review later?
For civil service interviews, yes, they're recorded.
So that's all jobs, all interviews. So if it's if whether it's a panel or not a panel, is the oral component recorded?
All oral interviews that are a part of classified civil service, they are recorded, yes.
Okay. And in terms of scoring them, how are they scored again? I know we may have touched on it last time.
There is a rubric that is prepared before each oral examination, where the essential functions and the competencies are measured out and weighed, and what constitutes an excellent answer, good answer, satisfactory and unsatisfactory. All of that is laid out, and the people during the scoring use the rubric.
Okay, and it's the Civil Service Commission that determines when an oral interview is appropriate or how it's weighted. It's not something that's a matter of the charter. Is that correct?
I don't know that that's necessarily correct.
Okay.
When we go before the Civil Service Commission with a job bulletin for their review, we've identified how we intend to examine for the position. So we present that to the commission for their approval after having thought about it internally within HR and presenting it to the bargaining groups for their feedback. And so it's not that the commission independently determines what the exam is going to look like. As the chief examiner, I'm presenting that to them for their consideration. And sometimes they have questions. We have the department there. Labor is free to join if they would like. And it's either approved or it's not, or I have not experienced a lot of times where we're asked to make changes, but we've been asked to explain.
But in terms of the charter, there's nothing in the charter prescribing that it's, all interviews shall have an oral component to it, or all, hiring should have an oral component, or something like that. What I'm trying to assess is, I don't believe it's something that the charter discusses. It's something that's led and approved by the Civil Service Commission.
That's correct.
Okay, thanks.
I have another question, but it may be for the city attorney, but I'm looking back to the charter and trying to understand, going back to the reallocation issue. I don't see reallocation addressed, and I'm assuming that's the problem. There is, under section 2, paragraph 10, discussion about promotion, is the idea that we add to this to specify that there's a difference between promotion and reallocation, and that there can be civil service rules that separately address reallocations.
That's correct. So
Okay.
right now, the way the charter is interpreted, every
Everything has to
every
be a
position,
promotion.
whether it's a promotion or a new hire, has to go through a competitive examination. And as explained by Ms. Adams, sometimes it is really an adjustment of job duties. That's really
Yeah.
more like a reallocation than
So if we add to the charter language that specifies, that the civil service rules will separately provide for
Correct.
reallocations.
The idea would be to give the commission the authority to
Right.
revise the rules to allow for a reallocation process.
Okay.
That doesn't require a competitive examination.
That makes sense. I don't want to have to figure out the reallocation rules.
Right.
I think that should go to the Civil Service Commission, but now I understand the problem a bit better. And unless somebody wants to jump into the reallocation issue, I was going to go back to the bumping issue for my own edification. On reallocation? Okay. All right, so the city attorney before the meeting pointed me towards section 9B of Article 24 about abolishment of positions, and he said that's where the bumping rule comes from. So the key line talks about that the bumping follows closely and practicable the reverse order of lines of promotion and give credit according to seniority. And that's what creates the bumping. Can we potentially address the problem you're looking to address by simply adding where it says follows closely practical the reverse order of lines of promotion within the relevant department and give credit according to seniority? And that would solve your problem.
That sounds like it would.
Okay. All right. Is it?
Just a quick question. That this may sound kind of, maybe I don't understand. Layoffs, is it usually about groups, or one person being laid off would still be going through the bumping or having the bumping options for different reasons? Or layoffs mean it has to be more of a group setting, like we're going through layoffs?
It could actually be one or the other or both.
Okay.
Generally, in economic times that are more tight in nature, at the highest level of our organization, the city may decide that we have to do reductions in our labor force in order to cut costs. And then a team of people would then decide where those cuts should happen. It's unlikely that it would result in only one. It's more likely that it would result in a group that together, when they're eliminated, would provide savings of a certain amount.
Just, so someone who is laid off, or that, I think that would be called fired if it's someone for disciplinary action and they don't have these options, correct?
Right, if someone is terminated,
Terminated,
that's for
yes.
cause.
Okay.
Layoff is due to budgetary
Okay.
restrictions, constraints.
Thank you.
Does a layoff technically require abolishment of the position, or simply just dismissing the person without cause, and you could potentially fill it later if it's ever funded again?
I don't know if we abolish the position. I don't know the answer to that.
Because I can see a restructuring where you actually just kind of abolish the positions and make do.
I guess it really, for me, it depends on what the technical term of abolishing a position is. To me, that means the position no longer exists on the books, so we'd have to go back to the Civil Service Commission and the City Council and remove it. Historically in Glendale, it's not an abolishment of a position. Oftentimes layoffs can be temporary.
You're
so I don't-
vacating it.
You're essentially, you're vacating that position, and it's typically done in terms of financial savings
Yeah,
that are
yeah.
necessary to balance.
No, I
out.
understand the reason. I'm just trying to understand the mechanisms here. All right, thank you.
I guess you could argue that if there's 10 of a particular position and 5 of them are eliminated by the budget, 5 of them have been abolished.
Well, but there's still a spot on the org chart. It's just not filled and it's not funded.
Or it's been removed from the budget, so therefore it's not funded, and therefore you don't have it, so it's been abolished.
Yeah.
So if you have 50 of one and you cut it to 25, you've abolished those. I think if you lead it with the widest intent, but.
We can argue about how many
Yeah.
angels are on the head of the pin later, but.
Yeah, I need to argue that with, on a different thing I'm curious on, as I'm reading the charter here in front of me, following as closely the lines of promotion. So, humor me for a second. Within a police department, I can look at, police officer group, police officer, sergeant, lieutenant, captain, and so on and so forth at the top. And so if you had a layoff, somebody could bump their way back down, assuming they've held all those positions. Is it just an interpretation, that lines of promotion? Because, I mean, that makes sense. It's within a job series, I guess. I would say. I may be using the wrong term. But what if I end up being, I don't know, a police lieutenant? But before that, I've been a police officer, police recruit, but I'd also been a park maintenance worker. Is park maintenance worker considered within the line of promotion? I mean, I know we consider it for bumping, that it's like I can go back to any position priorly held, but I'm just looking at the charter versus civil service rules, and I'm just curious, is that considered line of promotion? Or is that just considered a civil service rule which could be changed by a civil service process and not by a charter amendment?
Well, even though it's a different classification series, the park position that you mentioned was entry level, and then you promoted into police officer. So it was in your employment history line of promotion. So it's technically something that you could ultimately bump back to. Yes.
Yeah, I guess I'm just looking at going, I can see, yeah, I can leave that, but I mean, do mean job, because you could move laterally jobs. I don't know, I'm not sure what you consider promotion. So anytime you change jobs, we construe that as a promotion. So if I go from like if I have park maintenance worker 1, 2, 3, I can see that as a line of promotion within a job series. But if I go, park maintenance worker to something completely different, I don't know, line mechanic for GWP, that would be, we consider that a promotion.
Right.
Okay, as I said, I'm just looking, going, when it says line of promotion, I was kind of looking at this, is it something that could be addressed by civil service rules, saying that's not a line of promotion as opposed to a charter amendment, but, okay, got it.
But it does raise the issue in the bumping rules, how do you account for a reallocation? If we're separately in another charter amendment creating this category of reallocation separate apart from promotion, how is that accounted for in the bumping?
So for reallocation, once you are in the newly reallocated position and you have served your probation or your probation has been waived, then you now have property rights to the new reallocated position.
But what if you get laid off in that position?
And if you
Where do your
get
bumping
laid off
rights
in
go?
that position, if your previous class code still exists, you can return to it. So if there are 2 administrative analysts and I get reallocated to a senior and the senior is laid off, I could go back to the previous held class code, and if there were 2 and I have more seniority than the one who remained and was not reallocated up, I could technically bump that person.
Chair? Ms. Adams, you've used the term property rights a couple times. Can you, for us laymen, can you explain what that means in the context of civil service?
That's a city attorney question, I think.
Okay. Somebody who knows more than me.
Do you want me to answer it, or were you going to answer it?
Well, I'll just give my answer, and if you want to clarify, Mr. City Attorney. But in classified civil service, when you take an examination and you're appointed to a role and you pass probation in that role, you then attain property rights, which means that you have some sort of ownership property in that position. Similar to owning a home, a pocketbook, or something else, that it cannot be taken away from you without some sort of due process procedure. So when I say rights, property rights, that's what I'm referring to.
Thank you. And is that a term of art, or is that a legal term?
It's a legal term from constitutional case law, giving, as Ms. Adams said, a property interest in your position once you've attained in the case of employment, once you've attained the satisfied probation.
But it's not limited to civil service employment, that concept.
No, there are other types of property interests related to
Business.
yeah, business interests, like you can have a property interest in the right to pursue some activity, for example.
Well, I guess I get it in that context. I just didn't. I wasn't familiar with it in the context of a civil service job. But thank you for clarifying.
Denise.
So different than the previous work that we've done, for example, on districting, which is not in the charter language, much of what we're discussing here is exactly in the charter language, which is, or even if it's not, you're asking us to vote on something or amend something that is current language, and yet we don't have language before us. So I'm used
I
to
could hear from
seeing
staff.
strike-throughs.
My thought was we're actually kind of just learning about these issues that I'm not prepared to vote on any of these issues right now.
Okay,
precisely because we don't have language, but also because we're just learning about them. So I would ask if we reach some sort of consensus tonight that we ask for language be brought back to consider.
Okay.
I was
That
just
would be
gonna,
my
I was gonna add, we
Great.
were hoping to see what the opinions of the committee are and get a consensus on you agree that it'd be appropriate to change this as has been suggested, and if there is consensus to do that, then we'll bring the language back to you, that you can.
Thank you for that clarification.
I'd be happy to.
One suggestion and a thank you. Those 4 videos from the previous silver, those were wild. In the sense that I think maybe the first 2 videos, at least, and the first one for sure, they're sitting in the same room. I think in the same chairs and tables, literally. I think the mics were a little different though.
Lucy was there.
And I didn't need to bring that up, but thank you, Chair.
I like the continuity. She's not flattered.
And particularly the last video was skipping a bit, but I'd suggest if you haven't had the time to, perhaps just listen to it at least, because almost verbatim, I've seen discussions almost copied in terms of what we had. And one thing that did come up, I think consistently, and one thing I noted is that they met twice a month, I believe. So they had a considerable amount of discussion, and they went late into the night on many of those meetings. But they talked about the concept of guardrails and how the charter, in their eyes at least, provided guardrails in certain areas. So I guess my question would be, Ms. Adams, are there any guardrails in your opinion that should remain in the charter? We've talked about amending and taking things out. Are there things that you think are absolute musts that should remain?
I don't. I think that giving the authority to the Civil Service Commission, a commission who has expertise in employment and employment law, is the structure that we need, and if you will, the guardrails will be in place.
Thank you.
For what it's worth, if I could just add to that, I think all these provisions we're suggesting modifications to them and not wholesale changes, so that the guardrails, that it's still there, right? Just like our Constitution is the guardrail for governance in the country, this whole provision related to civil service will remain. It's just trying to provide some flexibility to allow some additional movement by the commission.
Let's go. Denise?
So just a request in something that would at least be helpful for me, and I recognize that you would bring language back, but when you bring these proposals forward, promotional reallocation, the bumping, and the third one, the duration, the reinstatement list, is it possible for you to reference where the language is anywhere stated in the charter, for us, as part of our, I mean, I recognize we're not voting or anything, but that would be helpful as part of the preparation, comparing apples to apples, similar to what the civil service member did who provided us with a public letter and gave his recommendations and called out where it was at in the charter.
That would be our intention.
Thank you,
Yep.
thank you.
Are there any more questions, or we want to just kind of open it up for discussion? And if, before that, I was going to suggest, since it's already been an hour and a half, take a brief break. Public can come and talk to us on these 3 items, and then we can discuss it, see what we want to do. Okay? 5-minute recess?
are all slip-ons.
Yeah.
These are pull-on.
Okay. God bless Skechers. All right, welcome back, everybody. Where we left off, we had our questions for the staff on these 3 items regarding the civil service. What I'd like to do is just allow the public to come and give us their thoughts on these matters, and then we can bring it back and discuss what we want to do with these 3 items. Again, this is just, the new topics, not revisiting the old topics for this portion of public comment.
Just a quick question.
Sure.
I wasn't here last time, but last month's subjects have not been discussed either, right? So is it just going to be these 3, or?
We did discuss those 3 items last month. We didn't really reach any direction or consensus on where we're going to go. We decided to keep going, introduce the new topics. So for tonight's agenda, we'll revisit those issues depending on how late we go on these 3. But you haven't missed a chance to weigh in on those.
Okay.
Okay, we'll get back to them at some point. All right. Do we have anybody who wishes to speak on 7A?
No one for 7A.
Okay. So it's back to us. Does anybody have any thoughts, and would it help us to break it into the 3 different issues and get everybody's thoughts rather than jumping from topic to topic? Okay. So the order in which they were presented, the first one's the promotional reallocation process. Does anybody have any thoughts on amending the charter to differentiate between reallocation and promotions to allow the Civil Service Commission to develop different processes for those?
I'll jump in for what it's worth. In a prior life, I've lived some of this, so I get it. This is one, because I may not be in the same position with civil service on all topics, but kind of looking at this, there are times when an organization, the jobs change, and you need to change the job titles, and usually it ends up being a group of people. Sometimes it's an individual. A group of people need to move into a different job classification because the world has changed. And not necessarily wanting to unemploy people, you want to give them the opportunity to adapt to the new situation and to new duties and so forth. And so I think the reallocation part makes sense. I also see that, there's got to be a check on this, because somebody could go, hey, I want to look at something, and you can guise a promotion potentially. Please don't take this, because I don't think the professional staff would, but somebody could guise something that's a promotion going, I want somebody to get a new title and a higher pay and all of that, and you could set that up to where a promotion could be disguised as a reallocation. And I think there needs to be a safety valve. I think the Civil Service Commission would be a good safety valve on that. And so if the Civil Service Commission were given the authority to promulgate rules and oversee that, where a department that wants to do a reallocation, so you're saying, we're going to suspend testing and we're going to reallocate people, if that's approved by that group, I think that might, at least it gets me to a level of comfort going, there's an independent, or at least a quasi-independent check on somebody just going out and doing something without any oversight. That's kind of where I land with it. So,
And those rules would not
I'll throw
only-
that out there for discussion.
The rules would not only be adopted at a public meeting by the commission, but then approved by the council at a public meeting. And then when there's a reallocation request that has to go before the commission.
Yeah, I think
that would be at a public meeting.
Yeah, I think that would, and that gives the employees, employee groups, and anybody else who might have an interest in it. So if a classification is being, or a group is being reallocated, or an individual is being reallocated, and somebody disagrees with that, or sees something that they think might be quote-unquote more sinister in it, then they have an opportunity to come speak about it, and then the commission can weigh it out and go, hey, this is a promotion or this is a reallocation, and then we go forward with the decision. And I'm hoping that would give the professional staff and the director and chief examiner, after having watched hours of chief examiner discussion on those videos, gives you enough latitude to be able to do what you need to do in a timely and expeditious manner.
That would.
The recusal of the chief examiner was a hot topic in the 4th video.
It was almost the 4th video.
Yeah, I'm surprised it hasn't come up. Was that an oddball thing? And it's something that we have no business discussing? I mean,
I don't think there was anything, it was part of the charter, and so there was discussion about it, but I don't think it was just It wasn't odd that they would have talked about
I
it.
mean, is it now out? Was it cleaned up or?
It's still there because they felt like there needed to be someone who was responsive to the Civil Service Commission to maintain that independence. But I think over the years, given the amount of work that the chief examiner had to do, the duties and responsibilities were merged with the HR director. And so you've got, the same title exists, but in a different context. And I believe anytime the HR director, there's a new HR director being hired, there is also a process where the Civil Service Commission also gets to weigh in on that.
Thanks.
So any further thoughts on the reallocation question? Hearing that, for my part, I thought Carl was right on target. I think we could benefit from seeing some precise language to modify or add to paragraph 10 in section 2. And would there be any objections to asking staff to bring that back? So I'm not going to ask for a vote unless people feel like we need one, because we're not proving the language. This is just asking them to bring back something for further consideration, and hopefully we can vote on it then.
If I may just add to that, asking staff to bring back reallocation everywhere it's listed in the charter review.
Sure. Just in the report.
Every place it's listed in the language. If there's going to be some sort of change, I would need to see the language in every.
Good, although I think the word reallocation is not in the charter, which is the issue. So
Say that to me
I
again.
don't think the word reallocation is in the charter, which is the problem, right? So because there's no process for reallocation, again, I could be wrong about that, but, so.
Good to double check.
Yeah, we will double check, but I think that's the main issue. There's no, because the charter doesn't allow for reallocations, that's why.
We're stuck with promotion.
Let me lose, let me lose. That was a slip. Let me use the language of the charter. If in the charter it's written as promotion, competitive examination, higher classification, and that's the language that's being used for us to consider reallocation, please bring it back.
Understood.
Thank you.
All right. So the bumping rule. The proposal would be to limit bumping to within the designated departments, if I understand it correctly, in essence.
Correct.
So,
I did have one question about that, and I'm going to use the 1, 2, 3, 4 thing again. If John is a 1, 2, 3, 4, and his position is changing, and he could take Paul's 1, 2, 3, 4 because he has seniority in a different department, is that going to be eliminated?
It would be.
Okay. That's what I wanted to be assured of. Thank you.
quick question. That would be subject to discussions with the bargaining groups?
Yes.
Okay. Have they expressed any position on that yet?
We have laid out the concept, but we don't know their position.
Okay.
We have to have further dialogue with them.
All right.
As someone who didn't know bumping existed until tonight, this seems like a great solution.
Okay.
And even the language you put forward, just like the simple change to 9B, seems like a clean, nice way to fix it up. So that's where I stand.
So I feel like the consensus is that we'd like to see precise language on that. And I would just add that when I read that, it seems to me that we need to be careful with where we insert the department limitation in that sentence. Because that sentence, well, like all of the sentences in here, are compounding. There's talk about lines of promotion and seniority, and does the departmental limitation apply to
both, or one over the other? Just
The seniority or?
the lines of promotion.
Oh.
Lines of promotion within the department, or seniority within the department, or both within the department?
We'll
Right,
confer,
that's-
make
yeah,
sure we
okay.
address that.
Okay. The third item then is the duration of the layoff list, right?
If I could just note your prior question, Chair Flower, point well taken. We probably just have to go back and see if there was a, just like the bumping rule, if there was a prior interpretation that required us to think we had to make this change. But if you want to give us direction, we'll go in the process of doing that. We'll also, if the committee agrees that they'd be comfortable with making the lists for a shorter period of time, then when we bring back the language, we'll see if we indeed need to make it.
So, leaving aside the precise language in the existing charter, the current practice is a 2-year list.
2 years, followed by a way to ask for an additional 2 years.
Okay. And the request from the staff is to allow, or make modifications to the charter to make that shorter.
Right.
Okay.
Or to allow the Civil Service Commission to make it shorter.
Allow the Civil Service Commission to
Yes.
make it shorter.
Yes.
Okay. What are the thoughts of the committee members on that?
Would there be a limit to how short they can make it, or any other guidelines? That's my concern.
Well, we were suggesting 1 to 2 years.
Yeah, certainly there could be, in like other provisions of this section pertaining to civil service, there could be a limitation.
So the request then is that there should be a limitation in the charter? You're okay with there being a limitation and not just wholly handing that off to the Civil Service Commission?
That's correct.
But within those guardrails, the commission can set a specific limit?
Right, so for an example, it's a 2-year reinstatement list, and if our recommendation is 1 to 2 years, then eliminating, giving us the authority to eliminate asking for another 2-year extension.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I guess my thought, curious what others think, is would really like to see precise language on that because I'm not following exactly
And
what's
was
in
it
the
just
current.
reinstatement lists, or?
In the layoff list.
Well, there's, yeah, the thing that's confusing me personally is that layoff list doesn't exist in the charter, the term layoff list. There's a reinstatement provision and a 1-year limit on that, but the city attorney suggests that there may be prior either case law or interpretations on record that have interpreted this to establish the 2-year plus the 2-year option, extension, outside of the bounds of the charter. So we'd like to know more on that before we weigh in.
But previously, so we're just talking about the reinstatement period.
Yes.
List, whatever.
Yeah.
Because previously we had discussed
Eligibility?
eligibility.
Yeah, that was one of the
Different
topics from last month. That's 7B.
Okay.
Yeah. Thoughts? We want to see proposed charter amendment to consider?
Is the passing it off to the Civil Service Commission part of the language we're debating, or only the change to 1 year from 2 year?
There's a rule in the civil service rules already that talks about the length of the reinstatement list. So the Civil Service Commission already has some control around that.
So if you look at Section 2 in Article 24, what it says is that the commission shall adopt rules. And then it further says the rules shall provide. So there's some they already have the authority to adopt rules in the charter, but then it says the rules have to at least cover this. And then they can do other things within those constraints. So the question is, what needs to be amended there with regard to the reinstatement list such that the commission has some flexibility and might not necessarily have to give that 2-year extension?
And that list is by position, by department? You'd have a 2-year someplace and a 1-year somewhere else and an 18-month somewhere else? Or is it one?
Today, it's by position. But if we're also talking about changing the bumping rules to be within a department, that may trigger having reinstatement lists by position and department.
Yeah, so what I'm trying to, and I'm failing at doing, is figuring out all the permutations of this and how much latitude.
Though, I mean, hypothetically, I'm looking at 9, because I think it might be a civil service one. It might be able to be changed just by the Civil Service Commission through its process, but we'll let the attorneys do that. But no matter where we land on bump back rights and all that, if we look at reinstatement lists, would we be comfortable with a floor of that a reinstatement list, or whatever we call it, a layoff list, would be for a minimum of 1 year? If civil service, in its promulgation of rules, goes with 2 years or extensions or something like that, that then becomes within their purview. But they couldn't come in and then do, oh, hey, we're going to do a
6
layoff
months.
list for 3 months or 6 months, and then, and drop it. They would have, the list would have to be for it would have a floor of 1 year. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that helps. And right now, they have the ability to, well, I guess they don't have the ability. They're stuck to one period for the list, a length of time, I guess, for the list. And regardless of which job classification, what department, so they would not only have the ability to, in this proposal, change that period of time, but also have different periods of time based on different departments and different job classifications, even
in
within the
theory.
department.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, like you, I'm kind of like, I can't figure out all the permutations, but we do have a Civil Service Commission that is versed in these issues.
I mean, I guess they could, and maybe, and there, but my guess is it's probably going to be standard. If my recollection is right, it's pretty standard across the city right now. It's 2 years, doesn't matter what the position is or where it is. It's a consistent citywide standard.
But is that because of the charter, or is that because of practice?
It's in the civil service rules.
That may be the open question, because that's the civil service rule. So the charter, it looks like, as I read this, I think the charter sets the floor, because I'm reading 1 year. But the civil service rule says 2. Civil service rule can be changed by the Civil Service Commission itself and the city council.
And I read this as not necessarily, it's a floor and a cap. It just
Okay.
says within 1 year.
Yeah, and I said, I guess where I'd go is if it's
At
floor and
least.
then do them, because there could be things depending on the position that you're dealing with. If it's a highly, I don't know, technical position or something that's difficult to recruit for, maybe there's a reason to keep a reinstatement list longer than a year. But that I would defer to the human resources specialists and the professional staff to work out with civil service if there's a reason to do something different. I think we put a check so that they can't short it, but we give them the ability to go longer or to maneuver as needed to
When it's
meet
good policy.
to meet the needs of the time.
Okay.
Denise?
Couple of thoughts. So, first off, thank you, Ms. Adams, for all your presentations and answering our questions and bringing things forward. And a lot of this discussion, I recognize, if you just hear me out from my perspective, it's not a criticism of anyone, it's just the way I'm experiencing it. This conversation has, there are operational things within our city which the civil service has purview over in city council and such, and then there's the charter. And the charter is our constitution, and I'm nervous that, I mean, for example, let me put the positive spin. While I recognize that things have been updated and civil service lives this and they have the expertise and the knowledge, and none of that is I'm not trying to keep any of that from them. The charter has to mention something that sets the foundation, that language. So just even if we stay open to listening to the public member, which I am, there's some really good, I'm all about innovation and efficiencies and being an adopter, but I guess what I'm really trying to say to you is I've been through 4 sunset reviews in my own practice as an occupational therapist, and I'm telling you, when you open up the language, it's very, very serious. Every profession in healthcare can come and challenge us. And so I take that hat when I am on this committee, and I guess if you want us to consider the civil service rules that keep getting mentioned, then make it part of our materials so that, again, not trying to be them, not trying to take away anything from them, and really realize their power and their expertise, but wanting to understand so that the foundation for how we're set up as a city, and you're wonderful, but you're not going to be in this role for 25 years more, Ms. Adams. And all of you guys as leaders are, the city's going in a right direction, but we have to make changes for the length of time that sustain. And so I can't participate in saying today any way I feel on any of these topics, including last month, until I see the resource, the source of truth, which seems to be the civil service rules with the language, with what's before us. I just can't approach it any other way. So I won't comment anymore, but I want you to know that I think we should bring back last month's language too and approach it the same way. The 3 items presented,
so-
bring them back with the language, everything that's before us.
Can I ask a question then?
Yeah.
Is it simply you're asking that when we have these items come back to us, that we not only have the specific charter language as written and as proposed for amendment, but also the corresponding relevant civil service rules? I don't know how extensive they are,
well,
but so I don't know if we need the whole stack, but just the ones that are.
I would need the whole stack. If operationally, 4 different committee members have commented about, there's something before this charter language about and recommendation to have it go back to civil service. For me as a committee member to consider that and to to really do due diligence, I would have to see what their language says, and then if it's better language, great, but then figure out how to make sure the foundational language in the charter still keeps our constitution of our city right here. Like, I'm never gonna go for language that gives all authority to the civil service, but if there's duplications that don't need to be in the charter, that you keep referring to these civil service rules, I'm absolutely for it. I'm never gonna, this is the foundation of our city.
I think I understand, and I appreciate it. I mean, I don't think any of us here are civil service experts except for perhaps Carl. Can we get a link to, or?
We can provide them as part of the next packet and also send a link as well.
Yeah, I mean, a link to the whole package. I don't know how, again, I don't know how extensive they are, but if the package
It's a booklet. It's not, that's it right there.
At least
what
include.
Ms. Adams is holding up. So.
It's not that big, is it?
Yeah.
Could we get copies?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. But
Okay. All right. If you could,
I'm a highlighter. I would need a copy, thanks.
but yeah, it might be helpful if you could give us some cliff notes on the relevant provisions as part of the stuff.
We'll do that.
Okay. I think point well made. Thank you. That said, are we interested in hearing more? Alan?
I have a question because I'm not clear on it. And, it's mentioned frequently. HR staff will continue meeting with employee associations to gather input and will return to the committee at a future meeting with updated findings and recommendations. So my question is, and this is just a hypothetical, but say we decide, it's best, our recommendation would be to change the rule of 3 to the rule of 5. The employee associations say, we want to stick with the rule of 3. Where does that leave us? And I'm not quite sure what the process would be, but we seem to be deciding on things without the input of what the employee associations, recommend themselves.
I mean,
Let me.
I have. just some thoughts on it. I mean, valid point. I mean, I've asked a couple times in the last few meetings, like, have the employee groups weighed in on this at all? Because I'm curious what they think. But I do think we have an independent obligation to make a recommendation to the council. The city, as I understand it, will have to do a meet and confer if there are going to be any rules before those, or any rules changes before they're changed. That's independent and out of our hands. To the extent that, you know, it may matter to us what the employees do think before we make a recommendation, I think that's great. But the fact that they may disagree with us isn't the end of the world. There's still going to be another part of the process.
No, I understand
Yeah.
that, but I just feel like we're operating in a little bit of a vacuum because the employee association may have a different perspective on a particular rule, and it would be sort of nice to understand where they're coming from before we independently make our decision. Not that we can't make an independent decision regardless of what they recommend.
I'd echo what Alan's saying. I mean, certainly we're capable of taking input and then rendering an independent decision. I don't think it's, I think it'd probably be, it would add weight to our decision if we had input from those organizations, so that way we can say we considered their input in making our decision and deliberations.
And some representatives attended our last meeting.
Oh, yeah.
So, you know,
But-
I mean,
But I mean,
they've had a chance.
I'm not asking that they have to show up or anything, but.
We're trying to provide as much information to as many separate groups as we can simultaneously while trying to stay on track and trying to make sure that you receive all the information that you need so that if there are changes that come about, we can actually place them on a ballot. So it's a little bit of a fight against time. And so we make sure that you're receiving a lot of this information we understand for the first time. So we want to make sure that you have a complete understanding of what the rules say. And then give us some indication of whether or not you're interested in a change or not. And that's why you don't have specific language so far, because we don't know which way you're going to go. So if you say, we don't want to touch the rule of three, then we have something to report back to the employee associations. And then they may say, no, we absolutely need them to address the rule of three, in which case they have the ability to come up and address the committee and provide their rationale as to why. So far, we've told them what the plan has been. Provide the rules, provide an explanation of the rules, receive some feedback, go back and share it with them. We make sure that the Civil Service Commission is also apprised of what's going on. We received, I think you saw comments from one of the Civil Service Commissioners, so that we're trying to bring everything together at the same time in making sure that everyone's got all the most current information, but not forcing the hand of coming up with a decision immediately at this meeting because you have all these other factors at play. We're hoping by next time, when we've gotten this feedback and we've had another opportunity to sit down with the employee associations, because they too want to appear before you and provide comments, that they'll be in a better position after having heard your comments to either submit something in writing or appear in person to state their positions. And then we will come back with some proposed language to give you an opportunity to tweak them on the ones where we've received direction. And then hopefully at the end of the next meeting be in a better place to move forward with possibly a recommendation to the city council, if you have them.
Could I just ask some clarifying questions? Have all the groups been notified that in writing, in person, there's no doubt that they're aware that we're deliberating this?
We've given them the same materials that we've provided to you. We've had a meeting with all of them over Teams. We've talked to them about the 7 different steps that we plan to discuss with you. I think all but one was in that meeting, and then the one you've reached out to them separately.
Right, and I've communicated with all of the groups in writing as well.
Okay, so the quote-unquote outreach has been done, everyone's aware. Great. So the second thing, in the consideration of time, the good thing is, based on council's direction on Tuesday, I think we now have a little bit of time. So that's second. Third, I think I don't follow the, well, I do, I understand the logic of they'd like to see the groups, or either all or some of them would like to see our position before they come and address our position. I don't think that's, I think that's the least efficient way of doing this. Because first, we'd like to inform our position based on their experience. They're the ones who deal with this far more intimately and regularly than we do. And, you know, now that they're aware that we're discussing this, it's completely appropriate for them, having been steeped in this, to give us input so that we can deliberate and discuss and ask questions and then come to an informed, because otherwise, I wouldn't want our work to be thrown out for lack of getting input from these organizations. And I could see a scenario where we come to a decision on things, it gets all buttoned up, we move on to other stuff, and then the statement is, well, you never got input from us, we never got a chance to chime in on this stuff. So I think it's imperative that we get either an affirmative, we've got nothing to say, carry on, or we do have something to say, here it is. And we do have the time for that. I don't think we're rushed for time. We could certainly revisit, if they need 2 more months to come up with this stuff, we can go on and do other stuff, because we do have that time, but we have to get some, one way or the other, input from them.
And I think that in response to that, that's going to happen in 2 different ways. One is when we go back and actually engage them in our second and third phase of meet and confer, they'll provide us some feedback, and that we would share directly with this committee. The second way is, just like you see representatives from at least 2 of the associations in the audience, there was, I think, 3 last time, they also have every opportunity to pull a card and address this committee, even tonight, if they wish to. I think that their position, at least based on the conversations I've had, has been to take a more wait-and-see approach, to try to learn a little bit more about what the proposal is in this type of a setting, what some of the feedback and the positions and the objections and support, frankly, for some of these things are, to get a well-rounded perspective before they actually engage this committee. So I actually suspect that at the 3rd meeting, we're either going to have feedback directly being provided by us to this committee, or hopefully the associations will step up and share what they want to. But we can't compel the associations to come up and speak.
No, I mean, no one's suggesting to compel anybody to do anything. It's simply, we've asked you, the charter is a document everybody can access. There are people outside of this room who are affected by the charter on a regular basis in the terms of civil service. It'd be great if they had input, and if they don't, that's fine too. But we've seen time and time again at council that you know, outreach wasn't done, people, you know, right? And some of it is very founded. Don't get me wrong, it's not unfounded, but I as, you know, speaking for myself, I'd like to make sure we've taken every step with a very defined universe of people who have a huge vested interest in this process, to make sure they've had a chance to chime in, and they'll still get a chance to chime in after we make a decision. My point is, I think that's the least efficient way of chiming in.
So,
Can I add a suggestion to your thought? It's like, if we think we're going to have language for the next meeting, and I mean, everybody here, the staff's doing a tremendous job in doing that, but can we just issue an invitation from us to the associations? I think they now know at least what topics we're on, an invitation to make some time on our agenda whenever our next meeting is, to allow them to come and address us however they want to do it. And that invitation, you know, is directly from this committee. For them, we're interested in what they have to say, that they can come and address us.
I think that's a
directly
great idea.
at the next meeting, and we'll make time for them to do that, because they are big stakeholders, and if they have something to say, even if it's not their final answer, if you will.
Absolutely.
They have an opportunity to kind of come and address us, they said, before we get finalized on language. And I think where we are tonight is we'll get some language to react to, because kind of like the compensation committee, I think we had an idea, and then when we saw the language, it's like, oh, maybe not so much.
I'm sure the process that,
Yeah.
So we have extended the invitation for them to be here, and that's why you'll see some of them, but I think an invitation from the committee itself could potentially resonate differently. And typically, when we present something to the Civil Service Commission, part of that process requires that we do outreach to the associations, and they will provide feedback, or they'll say, we have no feedback. In this particular instance, when we provided the information, we were not given specific direction to bring back to the committee. So that's why you'll see missing from our reports what the employee associations said. I mean, they had some general comments, but they provided no direction, as it was said, because they're still in a wait-and-see
And I just want to
process.
say, I don't think that's your job. It said, this is an invitation from us to the associations, if they so choose, they can choose not to come address us. That's not your job to have to go, in my opinion, that's not your job to have to go do it or to summarize it. This is their opportunity to do that. If they choose to do it that way, so be it. That's certainly there. You have an obligation, obviously, to meet and confer. I understand that. That's a different process. But as we're in the deliberative process, I think we ought to carve out a little time as a committee to allow them to come address us on any of the, 7 items that we're looking at. And if they want to throw something at the wall or say we're good with this and not with that, I think that's their time to tell us before we finalize up language, so we get the perspective and go from there.
I agree.
Yeah. And just as a general comment, just if the staff report could include that, just the information that these conversations are occurring, just what have the outreach efforts been on this point since, don't need every detail, but, we talked, we notified them in writing of the meeting and these are the topics.
And they may be in kind of the position we're at. It's like until you see some language you're not quite sure
Yeah.
you're reacting to. But if they have concerns with Rule of 3 promotions, opens, how we're going with this would probably be a good time for them to talk to us, because I'm guessing by the next meeting we're going to have some draft language that we're going to be reacting to, and that would be a really good time to weigh in if they have something that they want to say to the committee.
Does anybody feel it's necessary to have a motion and a vote on extending the invitation to the bargaining groups to address us at our next meeting?
I think we're all,
I
I don't
think
hear
that's
any
fine.
objections.
Okay. So, it's a request. Alan?
Procedural question, and again, it's a hypothetical. So are we saying that without the employee associations knowing, that we're going to vote and adopt recommendations, for instance, on the Rule of 3 or Rule of 5, whatever, and then say we get feedback from the employee association subsequently, that, might have some bearing that, we want to reconsider, our recommendation. Is there a procedural way to amend or revisit
Or
our
rescind.
recommend? Or whatever. I'm just asking procedurally, what flexibility would we have if we were really convinced, given that input and point of view, it changes what we feel we should recommend?
If I can suggest something, the way that I've envisioned this was that there wouldn't be a definitive vote taken by this committee before we went and engage in our meet and confer process with the associations. I think it would be helpful for us to have a general understanding of where the majority of this group stands on any one of these 3 plus last month's 6 issues. And then we would begin to develop some structure around it, and give us an opportunity to go and have that general conversation with the associations and solicit their feedback. That way, when we come back, we can not only provide you their feedback on these, but we can come up with alternative variations on what these provisions could look like.
Thank you, John, for clarifying that, because I was getting the impression that we were going to make definitive decisions before getting that input. And I totally agree. That should be the process. We shouldn't do anything definitive until we get that feedback. And that wasn't clear to me from what was being said at this committee meeting.
Well, I don't think we certainly shouldn't have anything definitive, because that would be a waste of time without getting their input. But again, to my earlier point, I would love someone from any organization to come in, if they had an opinion, to say, we think the rule of three is great, and here's why. Or we think it doesn't work, and here's why. There's a finite list of things that we're talking about, 7-ish. And if they have an opinion on those, why are we obligated to take a straw poll and get a read on this committee before we get any opinions from the people who live with this and deal with this and have to abide by this on a daily basis that impacts them? It just seems backwards. I'd like to get as much input from as many people who are affected by this, and then we can make a recommendation. It can be just the official one or not, and then still have more discussion if we needed to. But it just seems odd for us to come to any direction without having a key piece of information.
We're happy to follow whatever direction you'd like us to. And I think what we heard is to extend the invitation to the employee associations for them to appear at the next meeting and have time to speak on the agenda. We'll certainly extend that invitation. I think we also heard that you wanted some more definitive language that you could discuss. We can certainly provide that as well.
Yeah, a cordial invitation to appear, and should they not wish to appear, that's fine too. Just it could be a memo on any or none of them. They certainly, we know everyone's time is valuable, but we'd really like to get their input.
Sure.
I would, at least.
Yeah.
Chair Flower.
Yes.
I think what's also just helpful for all of us to recognize is that this is an iterative process. And so we can extend the invitation, and we can extend it every single time we're going to meet on this language. And I also heard Mr. Tuktaglian talk about what staff, how they would like to proceed. I think both of those can happen, combined with bringing us the language, and not just some language, all the language that speaks to these topics that's in the charter, as well as any sort of source of truth you talk about. If the real source of truth on a lot of these hiring is the civil service rules, then let's see that source of truth and make sure the language is not duplicative, or make sure that the charter stays intact in the way it's intended and does not veer over into operational pieces.
Thank you. So that was 7A, the first part. It is approaching 8 o'clock. What is the feeling of the commissioner about diving back into the rule of three, the probationary period and eligibility list? One thought I have is we could just ask for more specific language on all 3 points.
I'm okay with that.
And pull that into a discussion where we have actual amendments to consider in front of us for all, I guess that's 6 issues. But if we want to have
Agreed.
more discussion on it tonight, then do it.
Chair Flower agreed, and given the last comment I just made, I don't know what else there is for us to do tonight. If we don't have, I mean,
Before we close that out, I'm not hearing any objections, but it is on the agenda as a separate item, so I do want to invite the public to talk about 7B. Anybody who'd like to talk about 7B, this is the rule of three, probationary period, and the eligibility list. Perhaps one of the bargaining groups will surprise us and come forward and talk.
Could I make one request? Rather than getting all of the draft language or draft provisions given to us at one time, could we get them as they're prepared, so that way we get the benefit of as much time to review them as possible?
I think, again, we will do our best, but as staff, we all meet collectively, discuss the various points, and sometimes we discuss all of them together.
I see.
And so we do our best to get them out as quickly as possible, but juggling multiple calendars and stuff, but we'll do our
A
best.
couple that are easier to chew off than others, we'll try to get to.
Yeah, just to the,
Yeah.
I mean, don't feel obligated to
We'll do our best.
put them
Yeah.
all together.
Just a technical question. Is the charter review language on, I know we have a book, but is it online? Because I can do my own find and search.
The
It
charter
seems staff's-
itself?
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. It's under municipal code. If you click under government, you'll find a line item both for municipal code and for charter. You'll find it in both places.
And I know this is, but the search and find functions are in there if we,
The easiest, the easiest way to do it is just on the website, that's how I pull up the Muni code
no,
every
I
time.
mean, if I'm looking for individual words, I know I'm
Yes,
splitting hairs,
yes,
yeah.
you could do that too.
Perfect,
Absolutely.
then that will help save staff time too.
Yeah.
If you Google Glendale Charter, just make sure you specify California, not Arizona.
Well, I've been using the book all this time and highlighting it.
Half the
so.
time you Google Glendale, you end up in Arizona, so. All right, so public comment on 7B.
Chair, we have one request to speak from the audience for 7B.
All right.
Herbert Milano. You have 3 minutes.
Chair Flower, members of the Charter Review Committee, I was wondering if when the language of the charter indicates that this is going to be ideally not to have favoritism, for example, and for it to be objective, and if part of the exam is oral, by definition, an oral portion, an interview, is subjective. So if by the time you get the candidates or the last 3 candidates, for example, if the portion of the test is 50% or more, an oral interview, then you're basically getting a candidate to select from who had a 100% subjective score. And so prior to getting those 3 candidates, what happens below? Because I'm trying to figure out how does a city wind up with these numbers with regard to family members given the number of applicants, and you went with such a high number? Is it occurring here? Is it occurring during that choice? And where the subjective portion of it is oral. And so I don't necessarily have a complaint as such, but a question with regard to how that process comes up. Because if you expand it further and in a large portion of the test is subjective, then you really open up yourselves with additional problems. That's the way I'm thinking how this will impact it. So I don't know, maybe the staff can answer whether or not there are positions there where the score, the oral portion is 50% or more. That raises a lot of questions with regard to objectivity. Thank you.
Thank you.
No other speakers?
No.
All right. Before we move off item 7, I just want to say a word to our colleague on the commission, the Civil Service Commission, Mr. Is it Rin? Rin, is that how you say his name?
Reen.
Reen? Okay, Dutch probably. And just thank him for submitting his letter. I found it to be very thoughtful. Philosophically, I agree with a lot of what's in it in terms of his take on the role of the charter. Ideally, I think what we've heard tonight, though, is that there is a lot of history that we're also forced to reckon with in terms of the way the practice has gone down. So I want him to know that, that this commission appreciated his submittal and his thoughts and the effort he put into this letter, and that it wasn't disregarded, that, we all had a chance to review it and read it. And that's all I had to say on that. So item 8, future agendas. I think we also want to talk about calendar here, because I understand from the staff telling me earlier that there are some problems with our regular meeting dates the next 2 months. That in December, our regular meeting date is the citywide holiday. I don't know, is it a festival, a party.
It's a gathering.
It's a well-earned, festive gathering. So staff's availability is, I guess, nil. And then the following month, however, our regular meeting date falls on the 1st, New Year's Day. So I would like to go to the Rose Bowl.
So.
Special meeting at the Rose Bowl? Yeah. Yeah. So with that in mind, I don't know if staff has any thoughts on alternative dates for special meetings, so we don't get completely off the rails. I understand we have some additional time now that we're not shooting for the June election, but also
Yeah, we don't want
2
to
months,
miss meetings.
2 months off seems like a lot.
I would say, I mean, if Thursdays seem to work with people's calendars, perhaps we can do it either a week prior or, which is probably too soon. Yeah, it's probably Thanksgiving, exactly. Or the following week in December. And
The week
same in
prior is
January.
Thanksgiving.
Yeah, so it's going to be the following week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the 11th?
I'd suggest the 11th.
So, can I ask that you poll us when everybody's got their calendar in front of us?
Yeah,
we'll
we'll
have-
send something out tomorrow. As for January,
January 8th.
Same for
Same thing for
January, just
January?
in theory, you don't have to say yes, but if we can get a healthy majority of us here, I'd like to keep going.
Yeah, I agree. We're not keeping up with the previous charter review meeting twice a month, so.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree to,
All right.
I think we should have.
January, it
meetings.
sounds like January 8th is acceptable?
Well, I'm not sure if staff's available.
Well, okay.
So what we'll do is we'll send out some
Well,
dates.
Let's nail down December first.
Yeah. Yeah. So
And
we'll
if we
shoot it for
can't get a
December.
December date, January just becomes more urgent.
We will send out
Okay.
confirmations.
Does staff have thoughts on what's going to be on this agendas? We previously took a vote that we would not move on to any other topics until we resolved the civil service issues. So I imagine we're going to stay on these topics. Are there more civil service topics
The
to
only-
get to, or is this our list?
The only other topic is discussion of one additional item related to the executives within the classified service. So there'll be discussion on that, but we can put that on knowing that we may not get to it. but
Okay.
We can at least have it so that if we get to the other items, we'll be able to move forward and have a discussion on that.
Agreeable?
Just curious, could we put it on, present about it, and have it match the way you're bringing other language back? Match
that.
that whole process? Who knows, maybe we'll get to it. It could be exciting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did I remember correctly? We do have a public speaker on this.
Chair, we have one caller for item 8.
All right.
Edgemon Hakopian, you're live with the Charter Review Committee. You have 3 minutes.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for all the time that you've dedicated working on all the tasks that you have in front of you on the Charter Committee. I really appreciate the effort and all the thoughtful deliberations. I wanted to ask you to consider bringing back the salary review for the council members, and I would urge you also to listen to the last council meeting where they discussed the salaries, the challenges of the council members trying to address their own salary, and the financial burden that it places on all the council members. Also, I've talked to several people who were considering to run for office, or they were highly qualified to do so, but most of them decided not to because it's a major commitment, and in order for them to take the job seriously and read all the documentations, all the recommendations, and participate in the outreach, they need to spend a lot of time, and they would not be able to continue their work at the pace and at the rate that they have now. I believe this is it's limiting the talent pool for future council members, and it doesn't allow people who have one income to participate in election. So I encourage you to watch the council meeting, listen to their comments, and also listen to the comments of the candidates that are running for office, and consider making a decision on that. They should be paid for the time that they put in. It's up to you if you want to do half of the median income or the entire median income. If we keep everything at the current rate, and it seems that they are hesitant to and uncomfortable taking a vote on their own salaries, this problem will continue forever. So I would appreciate you to consider that agenda item. Thank you for your time. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, the next item on the agenda is adjournment. I have a question for the city attorney. Is a motion required to adjourn?
I don't believe so.
All right, we're adjourned.
You missed your chance.